some people who I showed the pictures to, they were saying, oh, you shouldn't teach girls things like that, like the how to escape being tied when they're underwater. And I just found that strange because when you're in that situation, life doesn't dictate if you're male or female. You need to have those sort of skills. And how can somebody that's listening, unfortunately terror events are happening all the time. How can people start being a bit more prepared and being themselves and learning these kind of skills to survive if something bad does actually happen?
So first thing is to realize, so here's a couple, I'm just going to give you like some sound bites. The chances of anything bad happening to you, getting attacked or a terrorist event or anything like that, are slim to none. But the chances of getting through your entire life without anything like that happening are probably zero. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It really is slim to none, but try going a whole lifetime without anything bad happening. Something's out there for you, most likely. So it makes sense to be prepared. Now, I've written some articles on, be prepared for adventure, and there's this prepper mentality out there, and I'll poke fun of them like I would any other group, just in, teasing for fun. You know what I mean? Like, but I look at it a little bit differently. I like to prepare for adventure, meaning I like the prepper stuff because it gives me missions and things to kind of focus on, but I'm really doing it so that my truck is packed for 6 people for 3 days so we can head off into the mountains or the woods. And I'm not putting myself in a survival situation, but I'm surviving and thriving because I do all that. So there's one piece to it. If we were designed and bred to hunt and fight, then training and fighting and jiu-jitsu and shooting and martial, like all that stuff is good. It's the fastest way for us to care for our internal soul, so to speak, right? And we don't have to do it with the intent of like boogeyman's going to attack me in the parking lot. But we can also understand like, yep, something's probably going to happen where I'm going to need to care for myself. And here's why it's important not to be a victim, because every time we're a victim, if we leave our car open and somebody steals something, it's like feeding the birds. So every time these turds who take advantage of people or steal things or whatever, it's like they got reinforced, they got rewarded for it, and it's just like feeding the birds at the zoo or at a restaurant, and then a whole bunch more show up and they never ever go away. So I think there's also a social responsibility to not be a victim. I think when people allow themselves to be victimized, they are actually doing, if you want to say what's my contribution to the safety of other people, that's it. Don't be a victim, because you're not encouraging it. That would be the minimal dose right there, is to not be a victim. And then here's the other thing. You develop that confidence that people are after. Sometimes you use the word swagger. That is a way to get it. It's when you're not walking through a dark parking lot or some shady area. Swagger shows up when you stop looking for threats and you start looking for targets. You go out and learn how to shoot and defend yourself really well. If you haven't experienced this, anyone who's listening, go do that. Even just a day class, if it's a good class. There's a lot more crappy than there are good. But you'll go get gas and step outside your car or walk around the mall or walk into the boardroom feeling like, man, I got a little something here behind me. And that confidence that it produces is so valuable in life. And then you don't look like a victim either. And that's another way to stop most threats, is don't look like you're vulnerable. So there's just a few things to think about there. I think there's a social responsibility there. I think it's good for our soul. It's the fastest way to kind of care for that which we were bred for. And then there's a very practical, confidence-producing thing that spills over to all kinds of areas in our life that produces well-being.
Because that's what always puzzles me is, you get these people who assume it's going to happen to me, so why bother? Or you get those people who put themselves in such dangerous situations, and then you have the ones who are mass hysteria about terror events. And for most people, it's going to be you might get mugged or somebody steals something, but it's how you react to it, and it's like you were saying, prepare for things. So I mean, are things like mixed martial arts, judo, are these the sort of things guys should be going into to give them that confidence? Or would you recommend, Brazilian jiu-jitsu or SEAL training, kind of martial arts? Or
it depends a little bit. So I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Big fan of Gracie Barra, wonderful institution. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it takes a long time to learn. There are other things you can learn that have you become effective at self-defense pretty darn fast, at least on the surface, or at the get-go. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I believe, obviously I'm there. I think it's one of the most effective ways to defend yourself. I like the mixed martial arts aspect because you mix some boxing or Thai boxing or something like that. You've got yourself a really good package. Now, people are going to argue this. Obviously, they're like, no, this is better, like blah, blah, blah. Like, well, here's the thing. The turds that are out there mugging and threatening people, they're not training in martial arts. So, yes, there could be a better system. You know what I mean? We can argue that all day long. Mm-hmm. But I've been at it for many, many years, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a year and a half now straight. And if I needed to deploy that on the street, the kind of person who's I'm going to need to deploy that against is probably an idiot. It is an idiot, not disciplined and not training. Because if they were, they would just go get a job, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my take on what to train in. So at the end of the day, I'd say find something enjoyable that you like, that's easy to do, that's close to your house, whatever it is, because you're going to be better off than somebody who's not training. Now, back to the why you do it, I would say first and foremost is it's going to care for your soul, care for who you are as a man. Again, if you accept the idea that we spent thousands and thousands of generations hunting and fighting for our food, and only just a few generations ago, when we came into the agrarian world and industrial revolution, then now in the knowledge-based economy, did that go away? So if you can accept, like, man, why do I feel like I'm burning up inside and I want to drink tonight? Why do I feel like I want to go ahead and take all that prescription pain medicine when I'm not actually hurt? You know what I mean? Like, if you're like, why is that happening? I would say look at doing stuff like this, because why it's happening is you're not caring for that which you're bred for. They call it zoochosis, is what gave me the idea for the book. They talked about the bipolar bear that was out on 50,000 acres hunting inside of Alaska, or however it all worked, and then now they're down in like a 5-yard enclosure, and that's why you see these carnivores pacing back and forth and doing what they call self-mutilative behaviors, chewing on their paw and all these things, because they're like, something's going, you know what I mean? They're shaking. They're like, something's wrong. And that's what it is. They're not living for which they are bred to live. I would say primarily that's why we do it, is to be happy, healthy, and whole. Secondarily would be confidence, and then third would be that you're not going to get through an entire lifetime without nothing happening to you. And here's maybe actually inside of that confidence is, so I had a stalker, and everyone's like, you're a SEAL, for God's sakes, why don't you kick his ass? I'm like, well, you can't do that because you get sued, and he doesn't deserve it. He's a human being as well. He's got problems, obviously. But I wouldn't have been able to make the right choices. I had to pay a lawyer lots and lots of money, restrain. You know, I mean, it was slow as smooth as fast. I played the long game to get this thing dealt with, right? I didn't want to just react and go try to physically confront him. I had to play the long game to get it dealt with appropriately. But I was able to do that, and I was talking to my son and explaining to him what I was doing because I had confidence. I'm like, I'm a SEAL, for God's sake. I'm not worried about, am I scared to fight him? You know what I mean? That's not messing with my mind. Be like, okay, of course I could physically deal with them, but I need to deal with them. So that's another reason too. You stop posturing. You stop doing all the bullshit men do that just get in the way, and you can start being real with yourself and with others and get things done.